May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be free from harm. May all beings love life. May all beings awaken. Welcome to another Kook Audio podcast. I'm DC, Poobah of Kook Audio and Kook Archives, doing our bit to help preserve the legacy of Shunryu Suzuki and those whose paths cross his, and anything else that comes to mind. I pray that you and yours are safe and comfortable, free from economic hardship, and able to get out and do whatever it is you want within the limitations of the universal precept of do as little harm as possible. I have a special announcement. Ted Howell, who first came to Tassajara in the mid-'70s, I'd say. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ted. Anyway, he's down there now doing what he's been doing for, 20 years or something, which is working on their plumbing infrastructure, toilets, sinks, leach fields, septic tanks. And he got Tassajara to get a camera to go into the sewer lines and, the drainage lines and everything, check things out. And he's been making a map of present and past pipes, leach fields, septic tanks. And so I've been trying to help him contact people who know something, remember something about that in the past. So if you know anything about plumbing at Tassajara in the last, going back to the first. In fact, going back to, the late 1800s. Look, just write me, David Chadwick, at dchad@cuke.com. That's dchad at cuke.com. And I'll connect you with Ted. Okay? He'd appreciate it. And just anything anything you remember. That would be cool. He's being very thorough. So today we have a guest, Susan O'Connell. Susan came to the Zen Center in the 80s, I think. Yeah, you'll hear him. And she had quite an interesting history in the film business. And so she had a very different background, and she came older than a lot of people had. And she got right into the practice, but also her skills from the past work that she had done, she couldn't leave them behind, and so she very quickly was doing things for Zen Center, like she was head of development, which is like fundraising, and but she'd go to Tassajara. She'd come to the office, work there. She'd go back to Tassajara for another year. She was at Gringo. She got ordained by Reb. You're going to hear all this in the podcast. But she went on to become president of the Zen Center. And more than that, what I've seen, I've been around Zen Center in those years. What I've seen is that she's been really the most effective person, she and Ed Sadison, I'd say, in terms of making sure that Zen Center has a sustainable form. And, of course, she couldn't do it alone, but she just had, it's like she had a way of looking at things that was somewhat like Richard Baker's, was how to establish this institution. You have to keep establishing it so that it survives. And the number one rule of an institution is it wants to survive. Not all of them. Some of them have limited goals. But Zen Center doesn't. It wants to be available to people to practice Zazen and study Buddhism and become priests and, all sorts of things like that. And learn who they are, find out what reality is. Of course, it's just up to each of us individually, but it's nice to get hints. And that's what our teachers have done, is given us hints. And that's what our Sangha does, is it helps keep us in line, in a sense. It creates a wholesome environment for, finding out what's real. So anyway, enough of all that. One thing I want to say about Susan that I say in the podcast is that I first heard of her through my Fort Worth friend, Johnny Langdon, who we talk about toward the end. Johnny was a very interesting person. He inherited a tremendous amount of money, and eventually his father sort of cut him off from it, and an even larger, very large amount of money went to the father's illegitimate son, because he really didn't like seeing the way Johnny was frittering away his money on foolish things like cancer research, looking for ways to deal with cure cancer, energy research. He was doing energy research way before it became in vogue. Well, maybe it always has been, but he was a forward thinker. He was a cool guy. He funded my first music project, and I didn't ask him for anything. He was just in San Francisco and, had a suite like in the St. Francis. And he asked me to come over, so I brought my guitar and I played him a bunch of songs. And he said he wanted me to make a tape. That was back in cassette tape days. So, he gave me some money to make one. And Peter Coyote hooked me up with the Pickle Family Circus Band. And I made a tape. It was really awful. Would have needed... We couldn't afford to rehearse. And I couldn't afford enough studio time to do more than just take first or second take. So it was awful, but it got me going. And I've done a lot of recordings since then. It was neat. I appreciate that. As long as I'm talking about it, you can check it out at diffusermusic.com. And when you go to that page, just really the best thing is to go to DC Artist Pages on YouTube and Spotify and various platforms, because that's where the albums are. There's 10 albums of a lot of very different music. Okay, enough of that. Thank you. Thanks, Johnny. But it was neat. Anyway, Johnny did that, and through the years, I would see Johnny mainly when I was in Fort Worth, always doing interesting things. All right, pardon me for going on so long about Johnny, but that was our connection. Incidentally, she doesn't mention it in the podcast, but she went to Texas and performed a wedding ceremony for Johnny with his last wife. And, we didn't talk about this, but I would imagine Susan went out and did his funeral, too. Oh, I want to say one other interesting thing about Johnny Langdon, or that involves Johnny Langdon, is that his film production company or whatever once considered making a movie out of Thank You and Okay, An American Zen Failure in Japan. And that wasn't because that Johnny and I knew each other. I had a guy who worked with Johnny get hold of me and come visit me and talk about it. And I said, okay, good luck. And then he told me later, he said, well, I brought it up in a meeting. And we talked about it a while, and Langdon went, hey, wait a minute, that's Chadwick. That's Chadwick's book. One other thing I want to say about her that we didn't touch on is that, I worked with Charlie Wilson and Shundo David Hayes of Engage Wisdom on Shunryu Suzuki lecture archiving. Then at a certain point, they wanted to do more, I mean, Charlie had an idea of archiving, digitally copying all of Zen Center's tapes, lecture tapes, like 10,000 lecture tapes or something. And, it's hard to get anything done in Zen Center because everything's budget driven, and anything you bring up like that, people say, well, write a proposal or something. Anyway, so Susan turned on to it right away. And I think that her working with them, not doing the actual work, she's making it possible. She's opening the doors for them. And Charlie would write proposals and whatever, but he got Zen Center support, and that became really a major project, and it's an ongoing project, Looking at her bio on the sfzz.org site, San Francisco Zen Center site, Zesho Susan O'Connell is a Zen teacher with 30 years of meditation experience. She's lived at the San Francisco Zen Center since 1995, was ordained as a Zen priest in 1999 by Tenshin Reb Anderson with Shuso, head student, in 2004, and received Dharma transmission in 2016. She has served in many key positions at the San Francisco Zen Center, including as vice president and president from 2006 to 2016. She is currently spiritual director of the Zen-inspired Senior Living Community Project. That's Enso Village. And we talk about that a lot in the podcast. Before moving into the SFZZ, Susan had a full work life as a young woman. She was an actress in L.A. and New York and starred in a dozen television shows and several feature films. After that, she started with two other partners her own business as an independent feature film producer with offices in San Francisco and L.A. and continued that business for 25 years. She produced 4 award-winning feature films and 1 TV movie and has been involved with dozens of development projects. She has consulted with filmmakers around the world on how to develop stories and raise private investment capital for movies. She can't seem to stop her involvement in film and has helped to produce over 10 video film projects about the San Francisco Zen Center and its teachers. She is a mother and a grandmother, which she did not consider to be work. I didn't know Susan was a mother and a grandmother. Oh, well, we just didn't hit on that. That's interesting. All right, Susan, I just learned more about you. So, all right, that's enough. Look, so when we've had our pause to meditate, we'll give her a call. So when you hear the bell, if you have such a mind, hit pause and meditate or whatever for as long as you wish. And when you're ready to come back, hit unpause, and we'll hit the bell to end the meditation or whatever, and we'll give Susan O'Connell a call.
Hello.
Susan.
Hi.
Hi. Hey, I'm sorry I'm late. I have no good excuse. I'm usually right on time, but I didn't make it this morning. So, how are you doing?
So, I'm good. I'm relaxing right now with my puppy. Has her head on my feet. So, yeah.
What
End
type?
of a good day.
Yeah, what type of puppy?
She's a Cocker Spaniel.
We have. They say she's part Pomeranian. And she's small. Yeah, I certainly enjoy life with the dog. They're great. So,
Yeah.
what are you up to these days?
Well, much more than I thought I'd be.
No surprise.
I'm now, living at Enso Village, and so I'm still trying to make sure that the culture gets kind of really baked in, because we're doing things differently and everyone's new, and so I'm really on the ground watching and giving as much as I can. And then at the same time, we're starting a second sister community in Southern California. So I'm in the development stages, and I'm doing marketing on both of them. And it's a lot. And it's never before in my life have I had the thought that it would be nice to retire. but it's starting to arise. It's I never thought I would even know what that meant, but I can see, because I'm living with people, most of whom are retired, they get to kind of go with the flow and take care of their bodies and do just simple, fun things, in addition to, seriously kind of studying what it means to age and, preparing for dying and all of that we're also doing. But I'm watching them and thinking, maybe someday.
Right. So why don't you explain what Enso Village is?
Oh, sure. Well, I think most importantly, it's something that came out of a need that we had at the San Francisco Zen Center, because maybe, I don't know how many years ago, but in the mid-90s, the people who were in charge decided to offer a retirement benefit to anyone who stayed on staff for 20 years or more, and when they turned 70, they would get room and board for life, which is nice, a good thing, because so few people didn't really make much money, and there was no way to prepare for taking care of themselves when they were older. So, but nobody actually figured out how that would work.
Yeah.
Because when they made the promise, they were all in their 40s, and of course, you don't think about that you're actually going to age. So I started to see it as a pretty big issue, and I came up with an idea, which was that if we could take 20 of our senior teachers and put them in the middle of a larger retirement community, that we could present it to the world as a Zen-inspired senior living community. And I just really thought there'd be a developer, senior living developer, who would see that as kind of the next paradigm for aging for the boomer generation, because I'm a boomer and it made sense to me. And so I thought it might make sense to others. So I started down that path to solve the issue at Zen Center, and also to, share our experience of community and practice and everything with the wider world, with an aging, group of people who probably started a spiritual practice when they were young, right? In the 60s or 70s, and then many couldn't stay with it and went off and did other things, but there's that yearning, that piece that wasn't finished. And I just thought there'd be a bunch of us, and it turns out I was right. So Enso Village exists in Healdsburg, California, and we are retiring 27 of our senior teachers here, among 200 other apartments full of people. So, and there's a meditation hall and a whole bunch of things that don't exist in other senior communities that are what I consider Zen-inspired.
Yeah.
So I could say a lot more, but that's what it is and kind of why it is.
Now, has anyone or have people from our wider Zen community bought into it? In other words, one that the Zen Center isn't covering, are there others who've come?
Oh, yeah. There are quite a few who, spent time at Tassajara, did things at Green Gulch, were in the city. I don't know what percentage of people here have a relationship to the San Francisco Zen Center, but quite a few.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, there are also a whole bunch of Vipassana practitioners and Tibetan practitioners. There's a couple of Sufis, and then also people who just got dragged along by their partners who, don't really, have a particular practice, but they're either intrigued or willing to end their lives with people like that have practice and trying to be conscious.
Yeah. What about Quakers?
There are some Quakers, and many of the Quakers are kind of Quaker Buddhist combos.
Yeah.
Which is, I think Buddhism is. I always say to our Quaker partners that Zen is Quakerism on steroids. So, yeah.
I would think there would be people who had only read about Zen or were guests at Tassajara, people who were had some sort of contact with San Francisco Zen Center or with Zen or with Buddhism that were, further afield. Have you noticed any of that?
Oh, yeah. There are plenty of people who maybe came across a book or, had a little bit of mindfulness, brought to them somewhere. And people are coming to the meditation hall and getting instruction about meditation and about, Zen forms and those classes or those offerings are pretty popular. So yeah, they don't necessarily know a lot, but they are interested.
Now, if you have Tibetan people and Vipassana people and Zen people and you have a meditation hall, how is it, is there a schedule? Is it free form? How is it administered? Who does services? That sort of thing.
Well, one of the things that we did differently here is that I put two staff positions in the kind of the normal staffing chart. I added someone we're calling head of spiritual life and someone we call spiritual coordinator. So the spiritual coordinator is pretty much like the Eno and is in charge of the meditation hall. And we started off with a Zen sitting in the morning, which basically, and we didn't add any service at first. And so there's a Zen sitting from 7:30 to 8:05 a.m., very reasonable time. Mm-hmm. And then the Vipassana people got together and said, well, we want to sit. We don't want to face the wall. We want to face each other. So we're going to do a sitting at 9:15. So they sit every morning at 9:15, or anybody actually that wants to sits, but it's kind of led by the Vipassana orientation. And then in the evening at 5 p.m., there's another Zen sitting. And all of this has just come up out of what people want to do. We started with one Zen sitting. We thought we have to do something. But then the others have come from what people want.
Yeah.
And we think in maybe a month or so we might offer service Zen, at the Zen sitting, once or twice a week, and then, maybe start offering well-being ceremonies and those kind of things. So it's just a slow trial and error.
Yeah. So when you have Zazen, is there someone who leads it? Is there a doshi, an officiator?
There's someone that will, offer incense.
Right.
And bows, and then hit the bell. So the person is a kind of a dual doshi doan kind of thing.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah. Does that? So what I'm thinking of, does that have any sort of status? Does it rotate? You see what I mean?
Well, it's all volunteer, and a couple of the people who do it we call them the Zen elders, right? People who've moved in.
Yeah.
But other people are just, I'll volunteer to do that.
Yeah.
And so it's more like horizontal than vertical.
Do you see fraternization among? So I see now. There's Zen, Vipassana, Tibetan, Quaker, other. But what's the socializing like? Is it are people tending to clump together in groups? Are they? There's probably all sorts of different patterns.
Well, I mean, you're right. When we first opened, I wrote an email to the Zen elders who were here at that time. There were maybe about 10 of us. And I said to them, look, I can't tell you what to do, but I would really, really like it if you don't sit together at dinner for a while.
Very good. Very good.
And so they agreed, and we all have situated, we'll walk in and there'll be a table that have 3 people and we'll say, may I join you? And so we've been doing that, and other people also do that. And there's some clumpings, and there's a little tiny bit of tribalism going on with the Vipassana people and the Zen people. But it's, I'm planning to bring Paul Haller and Gil Fronsdale out, because many of the Vipassana people come from Gil's group down on the peninsula.
Right.
And I'm going to see if they'll come and do like a 3-hour workshop on, Zen and Vipassana and like, why are we pretending like they're different? So, that's an idea I have. So we'll see.
Well, there's certainly more crossover with Vipassana and Zen than anything else I can think of. I've sat Vipassana retreats here in Bali, and I like them. I've learned stuff from. They're hard. I mean, because they're long, and they don't. We'd sit for an hour and then walk for an hour, and like that. Yeah. But although I don't know if I can do another one, I think they're due. And I sit every day, and I think that's good enough. I mean, that's they're pretty hard. The last one I did was like get up at 3:30 in the morning and go to sleep at like 9:30 in the evening.
No.
It was like 10, 11 days in a row, and there were no breaks really. I mean, you could take a break if you had to for this or that, but it was great. Anyway, all right. Well, that's really neat. Now, who's in charge of Enso in Healdsburg?
Well, we've hired an executive director, and she's hired, a staff. And like I said, there's the position of head of spiritual life, and then there's this spiritual coordinator person, and they run the place. There's also a board of directors that I'm on, and so ultimately the board of directors is in charge, right? But I also have this kind of unofficial, like, I'm the person who thought this all up. So when people are really, really happy, they come up and they thank me and, like that. And if they're really, really unhappy, they come up and expect me to fix whatever it is they're unhappy about. So I'm not in charge, but I'm kind of the elder here that is holding it together until it gets more rooted.
Do you have a position? Are you paid?
I work for the Zen Center. I do not work for Enso Village. So I'm still on Zen Center staff. I get a small stipend, and I am responsible for maintaining the authenticity of the Zen part of Enso Village. And I'm also on the business side responsible for making sure that the money that we put in and we will be getting back, we meaning Zen Center from Enso Village, happens. So Ed Sadazen is my co-manager. So Ed and I have been basically working on the Enso Village concept. So the second Enso Village is a separate nonprofit that Zen Center is a co-owner of. And
is that right? The Zen Center is going to be a co-owner of the Enso Village in Southern California?
Yeah, right. It's the second one. We're partners with the same Quaker-based group, Kendall. And the other day, the new head of Kendall said to me the other day, she said, well, I think Enso 3 should be in Portland. So, I mean, if it keeps working, if there are still people who are responding to this way of aging, which is a different way, then we'll keep doing them.
Yeah. I think it sounds like you've got it sounds like what's called a duplicable model.
Yeah, we think so.
But what won't be duplicable is the original people that put it together. So,
so two things in the second Enso, we're opening it up. There will be residential meditation teachers, but they won't be Zen Center staff.
Yeah.
There'll be other people, and they'll have to pay a little bit, but they'll get a really, really good deal, and they'll exchange some of the fact that they get this really good deal. They'll also do some teaching. So, and it'll be a variety. It might be a yoga teacher and a Vipassana teacher and a Zen. So, but the concept is residential meditation teachers. So that'll happen. And then I am mentoring someone to take my place.
Oh, that's good.
And so this is a person younger than I am who, lived at Campo Abbey for a while, lived at Zen Center for 10 years, is really smart, really good, strong practitioner, was a carpenter in her early days, so she has construction experience. And so I'm bringing her along. And Ed Citizen is also bringing someone in who can look at the numbers. And because Ed and I keep saying to people, look, you guys, we're going to die. We are definitely going to die. So if you want this to continue as a thing, we've got to train the next layer of people. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah, but it's not just you're going to die. It's you're not going to either want to be doing that or I remember my mother at 98, I had to gently take away the bookkeeping for the women's club from her. and working with them, she stopped functioning well at that level.
Mm-hmm. 98,
I also convinced her she should not drive anymore. And she said, I remember well, she said, and my best friend Ward was there, she said, David, well, I know you and Ward think I shouldn't drive. I said, no, Mother, the entire world thinks you shouldn't drive anymore. Anyway, okay, well, that is great. That is great. I admire you. I think this is great. It was, truly something that needed you to make it happen. It's just been very well done. I hear a lot about it from different people, but now I want to go back and ask, where were you born?
Burlington, Vermont.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. Yeah, nice place.
Yep.
Yeah, I know some very close friends here from Vermont. It just sounds like another world. Yeah. So what led you to get into Zen?
Oh my goodness. Well, I didn't come across it until the mid-'80s. And someone brought me out to Green Gulch for just a, Sunday trek. And I think it was at the moment when Reb had just come back from his kind of time at Tassajara after the gun incident.
86, maybe 85, 86, 87.
Yeah. So I think I heard his first Dharma talk when he had spent 6 months at Tassajara. And all I remember, I have no idea what he talked about, but I said, there is something going on there. There is something going on there, and I want to know what it is, and I want it. And so I started coming more often and taking classes, and then I started sitting and doing a couple sessions a year with my business partner was also doing it. So we would just set time aside to doing sessions and all that. And then I lay ordained and it was all going along in that way. And then I had an 18-month period of time in my life where I had loss in about every part of my life. So my mother died. My son moved out of the house to go get married. The man that I was seeing, it wasn't going to work. My business partner got mad at me. I had to shut my company down right when I was growing it. My dad decided to get remarried within 6 months after my mom died. And on the way to his wedding, I found out I had breast cancer.
Oh, my God.
So I looked around and I thought, okay, whatever's going to happen, I'm going to need to kind of recalibrate. So I went through the breast cancer treatments, and then I decided I was going to give everything away, and I was going to move into the Zen Center for like 2 months. And I was going to use it as a kind of a holding pattern while I went to New York, and I was interviewing with, for big jobs in the film business. And I was going back and forth from New York to Zen Center. And one day I was standing, they found out I knew how to raise money, so they got me into the development office. And I was standing in the office, and my diaphragm started kicking up into my chest. And I thought, what is going on? What was happening is I was starting to sob. And I rolled up into the fetal position in a ball on the floor. People were just walking around me, no big deal, right? And I'm like, finally, all the grief of all my life, because I'm very buoyant and I can easily outrun the grief. But I had stopped. I'd come to Zen Center for 2 months, and so it caught up with me.
Mm.
And then, so I took a while in allowing the grief to be there. And then about a couple of months later, I thought, oh, I got myself where I need to be for the rest of my life. Because this thing that we do is an endless study. There's no end to it.
Yeah.
It's constantly peeling back layers and looking and asking and practicing. And so I knew that I could do it for the rest of my life. And then I thought, well, I guess maybe I'll ordain, because that looks like the way where you get the most training, the most feedback. If you say, I want to ordain, then all of a sudden, you get more feedback, and I wanted that. So, yeah, that's how I got to Zen Center. It was not on my original list of things I was going to do in my life.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you came. You were there in the late 80s, right? At Green Gulch?
No, I didn't move. I didn't move into. I'm on a podcast. It's okay. That's all right. A friend of mine just came in because she's taking my pup for a walk. Yes.
Oh, very nice.
Are you? Oh, okay. Okay, good. Yes, this is a very good friend. She's taking my pup for her evening constitutional.
Oh.
I can't remember what you just asked.
Well, I want to see I want more details here. Like, when did you? So you heard Reb there in '87.
Right. I moved in December of 1995 into the Zen Center.
Okay. And into which center? The city center?
City Center. And then I was there for, I don't know, a year, and then I went to Tassajara, but they wouldn't let me do 2 practice periods in a row because I have what they call the curse of competence. And so
right.
I kept being pulled back to do this, do that. I ended up being the head of of development of like a year and a half into Zen Center. So it it was, and then I was Sika, and I started the conference program in the city. We had never had one before, and I was doing that kind of stuff. So I went back and forth to Tassajara, three different practice periods, but never consecutive. And then I also ordained before the third one, and then
now who ordained you?
Reb in '99.
Yeah.
And then his thing was you had to be in the same practice place with him for 5 years. That was the training. That was the agreement. So I moved out to Green Gulch, and I lived there for about 8 years. And
what year did you move to Green Gulch?
Gosh.
I remember you there in the office.
Yeah, right. They made me office manager, which was the least status position that I had at Zen Center. And it was really good for me because I was on no committees, and I had no power.
Yeah,
and I was chained to the desk, and it was very, very good for me. That was the best thing, is to not be in a position of responsibility. Big responsibility.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And what year was that? I think I ordained in '99 and went to Tassajara right after ordination in January, and then I came back, and I think later that year I moved to Green Gulch. '99. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I was there for the millennium. So, and 8.
Yeah. Well, do you have any particular memories or comments about being in Zen Center, other than the fact that you were there?
Ooh. Well, you know how you don't choose your family?
Yeah.
Right? Well, so to be in a melting, in a stew with people that you cannot get away from, that you work with and you live with, it's such a great training on, how you are with others. And so if you really want to play better with others, you've got to, you can see what the problems are, right? And, and just learning how to be with such people who are so different from me. Very few of them had the professional background I had, because I moved in when I was 50 years old. And so many people that I was living with had been there for so many years and were just, Zen Center people and in that world system. And I'm kind of very comfortable in the wider world. So it was very different ways of thinking, And I really learned how to be more compassionate.
Mm.
Definitely. If I had not been in that situation, I think I would have continued my life as a creative person, kind of doing what I thought was good for other people, but not really caring about them.
Mm-hmm.
It's being a creative person. You make offerings, right, that you think are good offerings, but it's not very really connected to the people to whom you're making the offering.
I understand that. I can see that way of looking at it because I've known a number of people that I call good citizens, like very responsible. I've known a lot of people who are like function on a higher level and think of things that will benefit society and have programs and this and that. But they have a lot of problems with friends and family and really, Yeah, they think globally but don't act locally. Right? So
you can't get around that at Zen Center when you're living in community. And I got a lot of help from people I trusted and, mentored and good teaching. And I don't know what else to say about Zen Center. I mean, it's not for the faint of heart. And I think I've often said, if I had known that Zen was a physical practice, I'm not sure I would, it's all very interesting intellectually and everything, but, all that Zazen and the pain and the stillness and the physicality and the presencing, in your body, was not something that, it's not easy.
Yeah, and, well said. You know what that makes me think of is like I go to a Vipassana retreat here, right? And I might be, usually I was among the three oldest people, right? Or maybe always. And I would see all these young people come who had signed up, and these were done by Myanmar monks. These are very traditional Vipassana retreats. There's other types here in Bali, done by Westerners, and I'm sure they're fine, but I just went to the traditional type. And so I see these, all these younger people that signed up. A lot of them signed up for meditation in Bali. What could be more beautiful, right? And then they've just got to sit there without moving for, hour after hour after hour. And there's actually a pretty low dropout rate, but some of them, of course, do. The Indonesians who do it are more, they don't have illusions about it to begin with. But I've seen a lot of that. I always sort of get a kick out of it because it can be very, very hard for them. And my approach is don't rest, don't lie down, don't take breaks. It just makes it harder. And I would see all these people just doing anything they could to try not to do it. But they almost a very high percentage would get into it and do it. It was just, the adjustment was humorous and difficult. So now, when I first heard of you, a mutual friend of ours called me, Johnny Langdon from Fort Worth, Texas, who I'd known since high school. We went to different high schools, but we had mutual friends. And, we weren't close friends, but I knew him. And then I got to know him better. When I'd come back to Fort Worth, I'd see him, and he'd visit me sometimes in California. But he called me up and told me about you and said you were coming to Zen Center, and just wanted me to meet you and say hi, and if there's anything I could do to help, which there wasn't, that sort of thing. So Johnny Langdon, did I say something else? No. No, all right. Because I had a very close friend, Johnny McConnell, when I was in elementary school. So to me, he sort of represents a good deal of your other life before you came. So why don't you tell about that? Tell about, your childhood leading to college, and, you can just gloss over it, but how'd you get into all this other stuff?
Yeah, okay. Well, I grew up, I was born in Vermont, but I grew up mostly outside of Detroit in Grosse Pointe, Michigan. And I had a really good public school, high school education, and I had high desires. I thought I wanted to be in the diplomatic corps, and I studied French and Russian in high school. And then I decided, because my parents were moving to California, my dad started selling nuclear power plants, and we lived in Southern California. And I decided to go to UC Santa Barbara, and I got discouraged from going into the diplomatic corps by meeting the ambassador to Mexico, who said, honey, you're a girl, why don't you, he said, you should join the diplomatic corps as a secretary, because there are a lot of American men abroad looking for American women to marry. And I had been like president of every society. I had written the Constitution for the new, I could have been really quite good in the diplomatic corps, but I just got discouraged. So I declared a theater major, just, because I'd done it as a fun thing in high school and stuff.
A what major?
And a theater major.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't tell my parents, and then I ended up, through various complicated things, transferring to UCLA. And when I got into the theater division, and I was doing, films and theater, and not, student films. And then I was just, quote unquote, discovered. I was taken to an agent. They signed me on the spot. I started auditioning, and I got leading roles on television, just out of sheer luck and timing. And, I was pretty good, but I photographed well. And so I did, Big Valley, Hawaii Five-0, Ironsides, FBI, all that stuff. And then I did a film for Sam Peckinpah, and then I went to New York and did a soap opera. And eventually, through all this, I stopped being, got older than starlet level, and the roles just are no good. When you get close to 30, they're just stupid. You don't have anything interesting to do or say as the character. So I decided I wanted to produce movies, and I met some women. We put a company together. We went out and optioned a book. We raised $1.5 million, and we made our first movie that came out in 1980 called Tell Me a Riddle. And we were, kind of the hip thing happening. And I was in San Francisco by then, and got a lot of investors and giving us money to do the next one. And, Hollywood, San Francisco, kind of independent filmmaker people. And during this time, I went to Texas just because we knew one lawyer near Dallas, and ended up calling Johnny on the phone from the airport and saying, "You don't know us, but so-and-so," it was Holt. Holt said, "Well, you should call Johnny Langdon." He said, "Well, come on over." And so we went. We ended up staying at his ranch, off and on, and driving all over Texas raising money. And anyway, Johnny and I became friends, and eventually I got involved with several of his projects, but the most well-known one would be Confederacy of Dunces.
Right.
So I helped him sell the project to Paramount at a time when he actually really needed the money. And so, it's at Paramount, and someday if it ever happens, it's too bad that Johnny died, because he never got to make a movie, which is heartbreaking.
Yeah. Because
he really, really, really wanted to. But anyway, if Confederacy of Dunces happens, I'm a co-producer on it or something. So, but that's, and that was the company that I had to shut down because of partnership issues right before I moved into Zen Center. I was putting together a film fund. I was going to raise about $15 million and be able to finance different different aspects of independent feature films. So I was in the film business for all those years and made several movies and really enjoyed the creativity of it, and a lot of travel with, going to film festivals and going to Cannes and Venice and all that stuff, and Telluride and Sundance. And that was my life for about 25 years.
Wow.
Plus the Hollywood stuff when I was young.
Wow. That is really interesting. And, hey, when you worked on that Peckinpah film, there was a producer who worked with him named Helmut Dantin. Did you ever meet him?
Gosh, I don't remember that name.
He was involved later on, and his son, Dana, was with Zen Center for many years. That's why I asked you. So,
Dana Dantin. Oh, I didn't know that Dana was. Well, the film I did was called The Ballad of Cable Hogue, so I don't know if he was a producer on that or not.
Yeah, I knew his father because his father would unbeknownst to Dana, would see me when he came to San Francisco to ask how Dana was doing, and and if I was in L.A., he'd take me out to dinner. And Dana sort of, we don't know what happened to him. Maybe he'll hear this and call me up and say, "What are you doing seeing my father behind my back?" Yeah, Helmut was an actor in Casablanca. I mean, that's how far back he went. He played Nazis and stuff in the early films. Anyway, that is very interesting, your film career, yes. And and then your Zen career. And let's see, your Zen career, which has gone on longer?
The Zen one, because I lived at Zen Center almost 30 years. So, and I'm still living at Zen Center, really. It's just this new, version. It's kind of a new practice center here at Enso Village. But people often ask me, well, how can you have done both of those things, right? And I don't know how much longer we have. I don't have a lot longer because the woman's going to bring she did bring my pup back. Hello, my girl. Hello.
Hi, puppy.
People say, how can you have done those two things? And I say, look, the through line is I've always been interested in the truth. So when you act, you want to know the emotional truth. When you produce a film, you want to tell the truth in a way that it's never been told before, right? When you do an independent film. And then in Zen, it's like you really want to go even deeper into what's real, what's true.
Yeah.
And so that's the through line in my life.
Yeah.
And that's how it all fits together.
Yeah, well, I don't have any trouble seeing you going from one to the other. I mean, that's, Zen can hook up to anything.
Right.
Yeah. Well, you've done a good job. And I look forward to seeing what you do, what you do in the future. And, I want to have an ear to the developments of Enso Village and whatever you're involved with. Very interesting, very admirable. And
thank you, David.
Yeah, congratulations.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm a firm believer that all to quote Ivan Illich, all institutions inevitably come to thwart the purpose for which they were founded. I mean, the institutions are subject to, sickness, old age, and death, like individual. So I can see that you're working on trying to keep it upright as much as you can and set it like you were setting a ship to go across the ocean and
Yep.
without sinking. So
That's one of the goals. Yes, it's true. But it's really up to the next generation of leaders what kind of a Zen center they want. You know? I have lots of ideas, but I'm going to, I'll be dead. They have to figure it out. It's their Zen center. So, and I really wish them well, but I'll do my part to try to give it some ballast, and also to have moved I know this is controversial to some people, but to have moved the senior Zen teachers out of Zen Center is the only way the next generation is going to be able to lead and grow.
Yeah, but some of them have stayed behind, so there's a transition, right?
Right. Yes. Yeah. I've done it so that we're moving people over 18 months. So there's still some senior people there, but they're due to move here in 2025. So.
Yeah. Well, very good, and I appreciate it, and give my love to. I know too many people there. You can't give it to.
Yeah.
Just
yep.
generally.
I will give general. I'll spread your love in a general way.
Right. Okay. Well, thanks a lot, Susan. I really appreciate it. It's been really good talking with you, and it's been illuminating. Yeah. So,
thank you, David, and thank you for the work that you do.
My pleasure. Well, you take care.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
So thanks a lot, Susan O'Connell. Very interesting. Keep up the good work, and look forward to, just like I said at the end, seeing what's next with you. Very impressive. Thanks a lot. This has been a Cuke audio podcast. I'm DC, Poobah of Cuke Archives and Cuke Audio, coming to you from Sleepy Sanur with Dog and Bandita, Feline Manis, and dear lovely Katrinka. And we're wishing you and yours and all of us a grand awakening.